You're so right.
This is You're So Right, the podcast that deals with Davidson County, the state of Tennessee, and issues that affect us right here at home. I'm your host, Lonnie Spivak, and I'm here today with retired Colonel John Wilt. John, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Lonnie. It's great to be here.
Well, I know that you're new to this whole politics game, but you have decided to throw your hat in the ring for the special election in the Tennessee 7th Congressional District. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so today, I think the Governor Lee issued the formal call. And so we know that the qualifying date is August 12th. And I think the election for the primary is October 7th. Is that right? Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, and it's good to know he got that done.
Yeah. So that happened today. And so this will air a couple days after we record it, but that happened today. And so now the clock is running. The early voting will start like 3 weeks before the election. And so we really have a very compressed time frame to get this deal done. The 7th Congressional District, there's going to be a lot of people in this special election. What made you decide that you wanted to run for this office?
So, Lonnie, there's really three reasons, and let me explain them. So, there's three reasons, Lonnie. Let me explain them. The first is, I'll name some names. It's Toby Meister, Paul Lloyd, and Eric Rotzel. All friends of mine, all people I served with, and none of them are here today. And they all gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country and our freedom. So I've got the capacity, I've got the education, I've got the experience to go do this job. It's the least I can do to serve the country and to protect the freedoms, just like those folks did. Second,
go ahead.
Second is the incessant lawfare that's been going on using the FISA process against President Trump, the unfair convictions of the J6 people, and then also the Trump investigations. And then I just love Tennessee.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your background. You gave me your bio yesterday before you came, so I had the opportunity to read over your history. But you have a very colorful background, colorful in a way that you've done some really exciting things with your life in service of this country. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Lonnie, I've been a citizen soldier, which means I had to be, the Guard likes to call it twice the citizen, because I had to serve in the Army on weekends and as a senior person on all my free time. So I've had 2 or 3 jobs almost my whole working career, and it was actually time off from me when I got to go deploy. and it was, the Army took me, from Maryland, where I grew up, and took me all around the world. My first posting was along the DMZ in Korea. I've been to the jungles of Central and South America. I've gotten to go all across Europe. I've gotten to go to Ukraine and in the Republic of Georgia and up to Latvia and all over the Middle East. So it's just been fun.
Were you in the Special Forces that whole time? When you joined the Army? Did you go in at knowing you wanted to be a Green Beret, and how'd that come about?
Well, I didn't go in the Army to be. I didn't even know that you could have Green Berets in the reserve component. Mm-hmm. And when I found out, that's something I decided to do. So I went into the National Guard as a young guy, and it was because my dad was a Korean War vet, and he didn't like the way that war ended, and he didn't like the fact that they kept him on for about 9 months longer than he signed up for. Mm-hmm. So he said, "Son, why don't you go in the Guard?" So I joined the Guard, and it changed my life. The Guard when I went to basic training, I became more disciplined. I got focused, and it gave me a mission in life. I went back to school because I was floundering a little bit, got great grades. I got a 4.01 semester, and I ended up graduating at the top of my class and went on to become an infantry officer. I did that for a few years, and then I decided to get out during the big drawdown in 1992, and that's when I left the infantry, went right to Special Forces selection, and I was very fortunate to pass the first time. So I went to selection, on to the Special Forces school, and then I had a plan to go to law school. So I got out of the Q course, went to my unit, which was 1 weekend a month, and started law school, and then And then I started the great adventure of being a Special Forces soldier. My first deployment was down to El Salvador, and we built a schoolhouse and we ran a clinic because that's part of what we do. We help folks rebuild. We give folks, just like we want to do here in Tennessee, give folks a helping hand up and help them take care of themselves. And then we went to Venezuela, and then after 9/11, I ended up going to Afghanistan and Iraq.
Afghanistan and Iraq.
But the final one, I ended up as a colonel. I ended up being able to command a unit that went to combat ISIS in 2017, and it was kind of like the cap on my career. And then finished off the last 2 years in Germany on active duty.
So you served under several presidents, it sounds like. What's the difference when you have a commander-in-chief like President Trump compared to Biden, Obama, George Bush?
Well, we know that, Ronald Reagan was the best. I loved Ronald Reagan, and he was the first person I voted for when I was a young man. But a difference between a Bill Clinton and a Joe Biden is, and the rest is what happened in Somalia. I think it was in 1994. That was horrific.
The Black Hawk Down.
They didn't support our soldiers on the ground. And so that happened during Bill Clinton's watch. And then also his policy towards Iraq during that time. It led us to conflict later on down the road. And then with Joe Biden, I have a hard time forgiving what happened with the soldiers. Yeah, the soldiers at Abbey Gate did not have to lose their lives. Yeah. And the way that withdrawal was conducted isn't national. It's a disaster. It should have never happened. And we'll be paying for that for years to come. And also what Joe Biden did with Ukraine, that's terrible. Thousands of Ukrainians died because we had a terrible policy. We didn't think about what the outcome was going to be ahead of time.
The lead up to that was, and this is what I know, and obviously you're much more of an expert than me, was Vladimir Putin had said, look, we just won't accept Ukraine as part of NATO. And at that point, the Biden administration, of course, they had all these ends with Hunter and everything, and they were milking their money out of Ukraine as well. But the Biden administration's policy was they were supporting, at the time, Ukraine for NATO. And then that's when we started to see the Russian buildup on the border and then ultimately the invasion. Is that your understanding? Am I portraying that right? I mean, you know way better than me.
That's a pretty good understanding. And then, in our policy.
Ever since then was like, let's just sell them weapons.
Well, let's just sell them enough so we can have enough Ukrainians die to keep the Russians at bay. And we didn't give them the weapons they needed. When you go to war, and that was something that George Bush did. George W. Bush was, or H.W. Bush. When you go to war, we're all in.
Right.
And we took that left hook and took down Saddam. When you go to war, you don't go in do
your objection has to be to win.
To win and conquer and put your foot on their throat and know that we're the ones that are going to be the conqueror and establish freedom, or try to, where we go.
I mean, obviously, one of the things that you'd have to deal with if you were to win the primary and ultimately the general is the foreign policy stuff. It seems like you have a good handle on that. Obviously, the two big hot spots we have are Ukraine and then what's going on in the Middle East with Israel and Hamas and Iran. So what I have my feelings on Israel. Of course, I'm Jewish, for those who don't know. So I have a connection with Israel that might be different than others. But kind of what's your perspective on what's going on in the Middle East right now? What do you think the situation is, and where do you think that's going?
The situation in the Middle East, so President Trump has been left with a mess that we've got to fix. And it's a terrible area that's, before Joe Biden was president, there's been historic differences in that area. And the things that we did, the things that Barack Obama did, the things that Joe Biden did, made them worse. The people they supported, like supporting the Iranians and allowing them to fund
billions
Hamas.
of dollars on the airport and cash.
Yeah, and Hezbollah, they were directly undermining our national defense. So I support Israel, and Hamas is no different than the Nazis. And we need to rid the world of that ideology.
Well, my theory on this, or my feeling is, and I think you alluded to it earlier, is I don't think we'll ever have peace in that region until we're allowing somebody to win. It's like, from my opinion, we let Israel get just far enough to where they've disabled their enemy, but only temporarily. We don't ever let them. It hasn't been our history, and Trump may be different in this regard, to where we let them finish the job, right? There has to be a total domination in that theater with a clear winner where they are dividing the spoils before that area settles down. Now, this is just my opinion, and I am by no means a foreign policy expert, but the same in Ukraine, when we give them just enough weapons to where it keeps everything going. It's the same thing we're doing in Israel, in my opinion. Now, you may have different thought on that.
So, yeah, we can't forget about China, and we can't forget about
Right.
India and Pakistan, nuclear powers that are heading off against each other. So we
Right.
need to be aware of that. Those are other areas that we need to invest in and be prepared to defend. But with Ukraine, Lord willing, we can see some peace there, because you've got folks that are. I know my Ukrainian friends that are mostly from the western part hate the Russians, but there are some Slavs there. There is a chance
that
for
border with Russia. I mean, they're mainly Russians.
right. So
Yeah.
I think there's a chance for peace there, and the opportunities for Ukraine to stick around as a country. I hope it's still there, and I hope President Trump can pull that off. With as a Christian in Israel, I think there's always going to be warfare there, but we've got to go in on the side of right, and I think we can help the Israelis defeat Hamas, and I think with the Abraham Accords and our I call them our friendly Arab nations, because I have friends in Jordan and Saudi Arabia, and they don't want the jihadis. They don't want Hamas. They don't want Hezbollah.
They're as scared of Iran as anybody, right?
Well, I wouldn't say they're scared of Iran, but they definitely don't like them.
Right.
So I think there's an opportunity for a time for peace with the Israelis and in the Abraham Accords.
What do you think, like, your role, if you were to make it to Congress? How would you support that effort? What would you hope your role would be?
Well, the president's the sole organ of foreign policy, so that's his purview. The Congress is there to fund that policy and make sure his policies get enacted. And the big thing is funding. So I'll make sure that we fund the president's budget to defend Israel, and at the same time, we're building up our military-industrial complex. We've wasted a lot of our ammunition and our supplies in Iraq, so we need to get that up and running.
And Ukraine.
In Ukraine, or Ukraine. That's what I meant to say, because Russia's at full time, is at full capacity right now, and we're not. So we need to get our defense industrial industry up and
They're
running.
getting most of their weapons right now from North Korea, I believe.
North Korea, and then I think the Iranians are selling them some drones.
What? I mean, obviously you're in campaign mode. You're getting ready to hit. I mean, it's a big district. It's 14 counties, a lot of geographical area to cover. What does the campaign look like? How do you feel like you're going to attack this?
Well, the way I'm going to attack it is I'm going to go out and see everybody I can and shake their hand, tell them my name. I'm John Wilt, by the way, and tell them why I'm running. And it's clear. I left church the other day, and there was a young kid across the street. They were having a little yard sale, and I was like, "Hey, you should vote for me." And that young guy said, "Why should I vote for you?" And I was like, "Wow, that's what people want to know." So I sat down and told him. And why I'm running for Congress is we've got a $36 trillion budget. We can't operate that way. We need a team player that's going to go work with Mike Johnson, that's going to go to Congress and work with the rest of the GOP members during this short window that we're guaranteed to have for about the next year and get some things done on the budget. We've got over 11 million unwanted guests in our country, and it's time for them to go. We can't pay our bills. It's also a national security issue because we need to know who's inside of our border, and I think we've got some bad actors here that definitely we don't know about, and they need to go. But we need to pay down that debt and do it smartly. We need to invest in our defense because China, Russia, and Iran are continuing to develop their weapons. And we're just one step away, one piece of technology away, and it might be AI from having an overmatch, and we can't allow that to happen.
The process, I think, for you and for me and most people who follow politics, especially from the Republican side, that's been so frustrating over the years, is that we win elections, we take the seats of power in both houses, both chambers of Congress, and yet we have a hard time getting what seems like the simplest things passed. Take, the big beautiful bill. I'm not saying that was the best bill, but it was the best bill that we could get at the time.
Right.
And just when you have Congress in its current makeup having a hard time cutting $9 billion from a $37 trillion or from a $7 trillion annual budget, it's like, how do we change that? How do we get to a point to where it maybe not even be a partisan thing? How do we get to a point to where we can discuss legislation in a realistic way and make meaningful changes that will affect the long-term health of the country? How do we get to that point?
Well, the House is running the way the Founding Fathers designed it. It's supposed to be unruly. It's every 2 years. That's your term limits. But right now, I think the only way forward is we got to put more Republicans in the House. And we've got to defeat the Democrats, and we've got to get the crazy left out of there, and maybe some new party, because we need a multi-party system. We need an opposition, and that's because there's nothing but evil in the heart of men. And that's why we've got that separation of powers, between the branches, and so we need an opposition party. We need good Democrats that care for the welfare of our nation, that aren't doing the things to tear down our families, our churches, and our government, which is what they're doing. So we need to elect more Republicans right now and keep the Democrats on defense.
I would expect to see more rescission bills coming from the White House, and maybe even a second big beautiful type bill. How do you feel on those rescission type packages? And it's hard to say, really, when you don't know what kind of. I'm not asking you whether you would support another big, beautiful bill or not, because we don't know what's in it. But we can expect to see changes, cuts in funding to things like USAID, Education Department. I mean, several federal agencies that we've been talking about for the last 6 months. Are you on board with those kinds of cuts?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm on board with even sometimes where I've got to go against what I really want to do. Mm-hmm. I'm on board with getting an 85% solution and being a team member with Mike Johnson as our quarterback and advancing the agenda, because we don't have time.
Yeah. I mean, Ronald Reagan's like, if you're 80% my friend, you're my friend.
Amen.
And Republicans in the state of Tennessee, even, we spend so much time fighting amongst ourselves over really what I feel like are trivial things. It's so very frustrating. And you get to the point where I'm a rhino, you're a rhino, he's a rhino, everybody's a rhino. Everybody has their own opinion on what conservatism is. We got to get past that. We're all mostly marching to the same beat. So I call it incrementalism. Like, I take what I can get when I can get it, and then I move on to the next thing. The Democrats are really good at that, right? Mm-hmm. They take their bite at the apple, they move the goalpost, and then they'll work on the next bite. Where my experience, Republicans have been like, oh, we're in power, we have to get it all, and we need it now. And that kind of changed. Those big swings They don't happen overnight. That the public opinion does not shift like that. So you have to take your steps. Now we're winning the argument on immigration. We're winning the argument on men and women's sports. We're winning a lot of these arguments. And now it's time for us to make that next argument and win that. So I hope we get to a point where we can do that and not always swing for the home run, but take what we can get when we can get it.
Well, I think the big, beautiful bill's a home run. I think Mike Johnson did a great job. I mean, he got it through.
He got it through, and they got it through the Senate. But I'm not sure I'd call it a home run. There's a lot of things I feel are maybe not as huge benefit, but
that goes counter
again,
to what you just said.
It's the best bill we could get when we got it.
Amen.
But would I call it a home run? I'd say a double, solid double.
You know why I call it a home run? Because Mike Johnson corralled 218 Republicans.
Well, I mean, he is herding cats. I mean,
Yeah.
I think even now with Mark Green's retirement, we're at
I think 5 seats. Well, 5 seats are. I was reading that there's
empty.
Really only a 1 seat advantage right now.
It's very narrow. I mean, nothing's going to get done really, and for a minute, it's going to. So the Congress is on recess. You're hitting the campaign trail. How much money do you expect this campaign's going to cost?
Well, that's a good question. So I think at a minimum, it's going to cost $1 million to get all the way through. And Lord
through the
willing,
primary or through the general?
I'm hoping through the general, but it could be up to $3 million to get all the way through the general. Because at least $1 million to get through the primary, and then the general is going to be Katie bar the door because we're the only show in town, and the Democrats think they can swing this.
Yeah, I mean they've got some pretty for the Tennessee Democrat Party. They're the heavyweights. Bo Mitchell, Afton Bain, and I think Justin Jones is running, but I'm not positive. But these are their heavyweights. Obviously, Justin Jones is probably the biggest fundraiser out of all of them. I mean, he's our Mamdani from New York. He's super far left, more socialist communist than Democrat. But I mean, that's who the Democrats are running. And they're going to have a fairly vigorous, expensive primary themselves. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. But how many candidates do you expect are going to be in this race? 6, 8? I don't know. There's a lot.
Yeah, because every time I go to an event, I meet a new one.
You meet a new one?
Yeah,
well, I can tell you for sure I'm not running.
Okay.
Actually, I'm in the 5th. I'm right on the edge. So the 7th District comes way down to West Nashville, just on the edge of Bellevue, where I-40 meets Highway 70, right there. And then it goes back to Kingston Springs and then up. And I mean, it's a huge district.
And I think Perry County's like right in the heart.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like an hour from everything else, which is why I love Perry County.
and so your main, what are the, I guess you kind of hit on it again, but why don't you tell me again, what are the three main things? What's your main talking points when you're out on the stump?
Well, the first one's a $36 trillion budget. Second is
but that's the debt, right?
The debt. The second is the secure the borders. We've secured the borders. Now we need to get the illegal immigrants out.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the funding that we've already done for that through the big beautiful bill, is that enough, or do we need additional steps to ensure it stays secure?
Well, we'll wait and see what Tom Homan and ICE wants, but whatever they want, we need to support ICE. We need to support law enforcement and help get those folks out of here, because that's a worthwhile investment. Even when you're in debt and you're working your way out of debt, you still got to invest.
Well, that's the money you spend to save money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What was the third one? Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, the third, and then there's one more, but
Okay.
defense. So we got to invest in our national defense and technology, and that brings you back to the fourth, which is coming back to Tennessee. So we need to bring jobs here. We need to invest in our industry, in our infrastructure, and in healthcare, and we can help bring federal jobs down here. Federal contracting jobs that are working towards defense and building into that next layer of technology. There's no reason we can't do it here. I don't want to start the big Civil War, because we do have UT and Vanderbilt, but those are two great institutions.
Right.
And there's no reason. We've got the people here. We've got the brains. You've got the beautiful countryside. You've got everything we need in Tennessee. There's no reason. And you've got a great government that saves money and puts money aside for rainy days. I love Tennessee. There's
Best
no
state
reason.
of the union.
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't do it here, and we can expand the economy, and that we can let folks stay rooted in those communities, those rural communities like I live in, stay there, have good jobs, and be able to raise their families and bring up another generation of my great neighbors in Perry County.
What was the fourth one? You said there was a fourth one.
Well, that's the fourth one, is working on that economy, bringing jobs here, the infrastructure, the industry, and then the healthcare. All those three things. Healthcare is really an important one, so we've got to fund that. We need to save our rural hospitals. And I was just out in just here in Nashville yesterday, working with one of the local churches, and there's some poor folks here. I talked to a lady. She makes $100,000 a year, but she's in the gap. She makes too much money to get the aid, and she doesn't make enough money to support the health care. So there's needs out there. We need to redo or get rid of the ACA and redo what we're doing for health care for everyone, and protect and provide access in the rural
I think
areas.
two things Congress needs to do is they need to look at again the Medicare reimbursement rates, and that might be the Health and Human Services or RFK's department, but we need to look at what the reimbursement rates are, especially for those rural hospitals, because it's reduced so much that these small town doctors and these small hospitals, they can't cover the expenses because so much of the reimbursement rates for the Medicare and Medicaid is so low, it's not even enough to pay the doctors for what they're doing. So that's something we need to look at. And the other thing I think we probably need to revisit as a country is our mental health system, which we've totally dismantled in the 60s and 70s. And we see now, especially post-COVID, the need for that support system for all ages, really.
Amen. So with the hospitals, we've got to do something. And I hope the folks here in Nashville, in the state government, can step in and fill the gap until the federal government can fix that. Because the rural hospitals are the lifeblood of the economy. And, right now, if my sister-in-law had a stroke, we had to drive her all the way to Maury County. And, you've only got 1 hour when you have a stroke to get that kind of care. So you're basically
you're on the clock.
Right. The same thing with folks that have kidney dialysis or cancer problems. They've got to come all the way in here to Vanderbilt. And it seems like we can do better. In Perry County, it's a success. Our local government there is actually getting the hospital back up and running. So we'll be able to provide at least some emergency care. And so the rural hospitals, you're absolutely right. We've got to do something to fix that, to get that funding back. And I hope the folks in Nashville can fill in the gap.
I know they're looking at it. The other thing I talked to them too about was adjusting the TennCare rates for the psychiatrist and mental health therapist, because they hadn't been adjusted in more than 20 years. And any psychiatrist or therapist worth anything, it just doesn't take insurance. They're all private pay, which leaves so many people, especially the lower income people, just out on the bubble to fend for themselves because they can't afford the care, but they need it or they're just going to wind up in the jails. So it's something that we need to really address. As a country.
The mental health, you're absolutely right, across the country, because if we can, it seems like it's gotten worse over the years.
COVID really made things like infinitely worse, especially for those people who were like kids who were like in middle school during the start of COVID. They really got hit the hardest. Now you check to any family who has like middle-aged kids, like they're all on antidepressants and Ritalin, and it's it's crazy. Everybody's on something for that.
I think that's a national security issue because you can't go in the military once you've been on some of those behavioral health drugs. And we can't have all our kids on those
They
drugs.
all are. I mean, if you ask anybody, especially like in the Middle Tennessee area, like everybody in Nashville's on drugs for something.
Well, I think we might be overprescribing. I mean,
that
we
might be a case.
Well, it's not just it's that, but they're overprescribing with statins. That's another thing. So we've got to somehow fix our healthcare system where the doctors are driven by the insurance companies, and they have these protocols where they automatically address the symptom, but they're not addressing the problem. And a big problem to a lot of our health issues is the food we're eating. So we need to get a healthier diet, and hopefully JFK can fix that. And hopefully we can subsidize our farmers to not grow, the wheat, the corn, and the soybeans. It's going to be processed into food to feed us more unhealthy things to make our kids have more diabetes, because there's a pandemic here or an epidemic here in Tennessee of young kids with diabetes and all the mental health issues. And we need to let little boys be little boys, and we don't need to drug them up. What I got was a boot in the behind from my dad, literally. And
leave me alone and go out and play.
Exactly. I don't think we need to drug our kids up. Because that's wrong.
Now, I read your bio, and your bio includes your wife and your family. And I mean, she has a very interesting occupation too. Do you want to talk about that at all? Talk about your family?
Yeah. So Donna is awesome. She came from very humble beginnings. So and
Donna's your wife.
Donna's my wife. Dr. Donna, I call her. She came from she was one of 10. Her mom and dad divorced. Her dad had a brain cancer and died when she was 8. And then her mom, we'll just say she had some substance issues, and then she didn't have the best upbringing. But there's a light in that woman, and she is so smart. And she put herself through college. She got a PhD from Northwestern University and had $1,000 in her pocket, and then a job at the National Lab in Los Alamos. She should be an example to all the kids around here that live in these poor neighborhoods that you can make something of yourself in this country. Excuse me. My wife represents the American dream, and I'm just so blessed to have her.
So when people go, "What's your wife, a nuclear scientist?" You go, "Yeah, absolutely." That's great. And do you guys have kids?
So we've got 2 kids. So we've got Hannah, who's 20 years old, and I got to brag about my girl. So it's Division II, but she's a first-team All-American goalkeeper at Shepherd University.
Very nice.
She's very driven, and
soccer.
Soccer. And then Luke is working in Republican politics up in D.C. And Luke and I have some interesting conversations about because he's seeing Tennessee from inside the Beltway, and he has some interesting perspectives on our political figures that are up there. And I'll just leave it at that.
And I mean, we've had a pretty good conversation. How do people find out more about you? If they want you to come speak, how do they get in touch with you or your campaign?
So that's a great question. And it goes to this, that I wasn't planning on. Look, I was supposed to be going to Jordan tomorrow. This was not on my agenda for this summer. And so I was fortunate to be able to go to the Leadership Institute and learn how to run a campaign. So I've hired a campaign consultant, and my website should be up and running right now, but it's not. So I can't. But
what's the domain name?
So it's going to be Wilt for Congress.
The number 4 or spelled out?
I'm pretty sure it's 4. I'll get that for you.
Okay.
Wilt for Congress, and that's going to be the domain name.
Okay, great. And so it's not up yet, but it'll be up soon.
It'll be up soon. We got the FEC file. We filed with the FEC, and then we got the bank account set up and started to make the calls.
So I guess now that the call has actually been made, you can pull papers and get signatures.
Yes.
And then get certified by the 17th, I think.
So we can get certified by the Secretary of State, and then we need to go to Scott Golden with the Republican Party and make it through those wickets. And that'll be a challenge as well. But I feel like I'm a bona fide Republican, and I feel like I can present a case and make that. And
The state rules are very specific on
They
what
are.
a bona fide is and what's not. And if you're on the bubble, you're not going to be on the ballot.
Okay.
And that's not me saying it. That happened to a couple candidates, Robbie Starbuck, Morgan Ortegas, in Tennessee 5, 4 years ago.
So I tell you, I'm not Robbie Starbuck and I'm not Morgan Ortega.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, and the state executive committee has even made the harder, like the bona fides are even more stringent than they were. I don't necessarily agree with what the state executive committee's done in that regard. And just as being the chairman from a fairly liberal city, those bona fides make it hard to get people engaged in a city like Nashville. But Perry County, it might be totally different, right?
Oh, it has a chilling effect. It has a chilling effect across the board, no matter where you are, because we need folks that aren't maybe necessarily interested in politics to be in politics. That's what makes this country great.
Right.
And so what I'm going to continue to do is run, get out there and meet folks, and then lay my cards on the table, and we'll leave it to the executive committee and the good Lord. And however that works out, those are the rules, and that's how it'll play. But I'm telling you, this is not the last time you're going to sit across from John Wilt, because I'm going to be around.
Well, John, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time and making the long drive out here to Franklin to meet with me, and I wish you and your campaign all the best.
Okay, thank you. And
for those who want to find me, I am at Lonnie Spivak on all the platforms. The podcast is You're So Right. It'll be available on YouTube, Rumble, and everywhere you find podcasts. Have a good night.
In the heart of Tennessee, where the mountains meet the sky, through the rolling hills and the rivers that run by, we stand strong, our roots deep and true, in the land of cotton where the sun sets through. The wind whispers tales of old in every town and field, echoes of history in every stream and yield. You're so right, in this land we hold dear, Tennessee truths shining bright, clear, from the Smoky Mountains to the Gulf's embrace, our spirits rise, no matter what the fate. In the heart of Nashville, where dreams take flight, with every note, the city lights ignite. From honky-tonks to farms, our stories blend in the heart of Tennessee, where we belong. The wind whispers tales of old in every town and field, echoes of history in every stream and guild. You're so right, in this land we hold dear, Tennessee of truths shining bright, clear, from the Smoky Mountains to the Gulf's embrace, our spirits rise, no matter what the fate. Through storms and shine, we stand tall and proud, in the heart of Tennessee.